Hi folks, this time I'm back talking about homicide, but this is involuntary manslaughter. We talked last time about murder with the specific intent, or this direct intent, to unlawfully kill somebody. We also talked about the defence to murder, or the partial defence, which reduces murder to voluntary manslaughter. That's where somebody has the actus reus and mens rea for murder. However, they're suffering from an abnormality of mental functioning or they lose control. So murder and voluntary manslaughter, they sort of stay together. Now, it's more than likely, it's highly likely, that you're going to get a question in the exam about involuntary manslaughter. This is completely different. Involuntary manslaughter is where a person kills somebody, but it's a result of a crime, not as if they're going to murder somebody. For example, somebody smashes a window and a piece of glass from the damaged window drops onto somebody and cuts their throat or cuts their artery and they die, they bleed to death. They haven't had the intention to kill, but they've committed a crime, i.e. commit criminal damage, and that crime has resulted in somebody dying. So you can't really have an accident when it comes to criminal liability. There's always some blame. What we have with involuntary manslaughter then, involuntary manslaughter is split into two. You've got the commission, that's where somebody commits a proactive crime. They do something. So a battery or an assault or a damage or a robbery or a burglary. So they proactively commit a crime. They have the actus reus and the mens rea for that crime. The act of the crime, the action, is dangerous and it results in the death. And all you've got to prove is that the person had the actus reus and mens rea for the original crime, i.e. the unlawful destroy or damage property, intending or being reckless as to whether the property will be damaged. That's sufficient, and then it goes on to lead to a death. And then because this is found in common law, it goes to a jury and the jury decide. Now, the second part of this involuntary manslaughter is called gross negligence manslaughter. This is the opposite. This is where somebody doesn't do something. So this is like the negligence we see in civil law, but it's so bad, it's so gross, that it moves from civil law into criminal law. Now, where we find these gross negligence manslaughters mainly is with the medical profession. The leading case for this is R.V. Adamaco. Adamaco was an anaesthetist who was responsible for keeping a patient alive and breathing under a general anaesthetic. For whatever reason, he took his eye off the patient and the tube which fed oxygen into the patient slipped out the mouth and the patient asphyxiated and died. It was considered that his negligence was so bad, so gross, that it warranted a criminal prosecution, and he was convicted by a jury and by the House of Lords, who upheld the conviction, of gross negligence manslaughter. And Lord Mackay, who read out the direction, said that a person is guilty of gross negligence manslaughter if they have a duty of care to the victim. The duty of care is breached. The breach is so gross that it moves from civil to criminal jurisdiction, and the breach resulted in the death. There have been a number of other medical cases subsequently. However, Adamaco is the main one. You may also want to consider cases such as Church in 1966. This is a case which revolves around a man hitting a woman, knocking her unconscious, and believing that she's dead when she isn't. He then drags her body and throws it into the River Ouse, and then she is actually killed. So he did not have the mens rea for murder. He had actually the actus reus and mens rea for a battery or section 47 assault. This obviously was a constructive act or unlawful act, manslaughter. So he commits a crime. The commission of the crime is dangerous. The danger and the crime combined lead to a death, and that's called either unlawful act manslaughter or constructive manslaughter. This is juxtaposed with the people that do not do things. These are the negligent people, or simply omission, that don't do anything. So if you go back to the initial actus reus talk, this is where people do not do things. So for example, the woman who does not feed the stepdaughter, the brother who does not care properly for the sister with mental health and anorexia and she dies. In R.V. Hutton, the mother that does not feed the child and simply watches television and drinking, and the child starves to death. She doesn't actually hit the child or do anything. She does nothing. Police at R.V. died in 1979, although this is not classed as a gross negligence manslaughter, but it gives a flavour where a police officer simply does nothing, watches a man being kicked to death, and does nothing. So a gross negligence manslaughter is where a person who has this duty of care breaches the duty of care. A famous case we can look at is R.V. Evans brackets Gemma. This is an interesting case where there's a mother and a sister who are both heroin addicts, and their younger daughter, the sister, Carly, she's 16. Gemma goes and gets a bag of heroin, brings it back, and all three share the heroin. So the mother, Gemma Evans, and Carly share this heroin. The youngest one takes a turn for the worst, and they decide to put her to bed. They don't ring an ambulance, they don't ring the paramedics, they don't get a taxi and take her to hospital, they just leave her, and she dies. So the mother is convicted of gross negligence manslaughter under the sort of doctrine of special duty, special relationship, that she was the mother and she had a duty to look after the daughter. The sister, Gemma, pleaded not guilty, saying, well, you know, I'm a sister, I'm not a mum, I don't have to look after her. However, the courts found that she, by buying the heroin and by giving it to a sister and by taking her up to bed when she knew she was bad, created a dangerous situation. And she was also convicted of gross negligence by not doing anything, by not calling an ambulance. So they're pretty easy to differentiate. The definition, obviously, is a bit easier than the statutory voluntary manslaughter. So if you think about murder, that's common law. Voluntary manslaughter, the defence to murder, that's statutory. The Homicide Act 1957 and the Coroners and Justice Act 2009. We move across to this section, which is involuntary. That's no actus reus or mens rea for murder. However, we have a death. These are common law. These are found in case law, both leading cases such as Adamaco, 1994, for gross negligence manslaughter, Evans, Gemma, 2009. Or we go across and look at constructive act manslaughter. We've got cases such as Arubiecki, 1986, Church, 1966. And let me look in the book, see what they've got. Kennedy, 2007, which relates to drug addicts injecting each other. And what they've said is if a person injects themselves, there is no constructive manslaughter for other people involved, such as dealers or people who've handed people paraphernalia. A famous one, DPP v Newbury and Jones, where D threw a paving slab onto the path of a train and it smashed through the window of the cab, killing the guard. In M, 2012, D's had been in a nightclub and were asked to leave after they'd become abusive. After D's were forcibly expelled by a doorman through a doorway, they proceeded to kick at the door. This caused the doorman to come out. V, one of the doormen, went back into the club after a scuffle with them, where he slumped to the floor and died. V died of an aneurysm, and the Court of Appeal said that it had never been a specific requirement for the prosecution to provide that the defendant must actually see any specific harm, or even that a reasonable bystander would have been able to foresee the precise form of harm that did ensue. As a result, the prosecution appeal was allowed and a trial was reordered. A recent case in JF brackets 2015, 2 young offenders aged 14 and 16 have been convicted of an unlawful and dangerous act manslaughter after starting a fire at a derelict property, which resulted in the death of a homeless person. So they set fire to a building, they didn't know there was a homeless man in there, and the homeless person died. D1, who had low IQ and poor reasoning skills, admitted to knowing that people slept in the building, but believed that no one was in there. Second defendant claimed that she thought no one was in the building. Both argued that the church test for dangerousness should be adapted to take into account the foreseeability of people of their age and mental capacity. They argued that their lack of foresight of harm resulting from the unlawful act meant that their actions should not be deemed as dangerous. So the test for dangerousness in constructive act manslaughter is an objective one. That means, would a reasonable person think it was dangerous? And that remains the case. It still stays as an objective test. Recent cases in relation to gross negligence manslaughter. There's a case here, Garg Sadhanshu, 2012, a hospital consultant, a urologist, failed to provide proper medical care to a patient admitted to A&E when he was on duty. His failure to recognise the seriousness of the patient's condition or to provide her with adequate care led to her death. There was a clear duty between doctor and patient which had been breached. In Reeves 2012, a mother clearly breached her parental duty to care for her 2 children, aged 1 and 2, when she left them unattended in the bath for 45 minutes. Having ignored the screams of the elder child, she returned to find the young one had drowned. A breach of duty had caused the death of the child. So there's a couple of recent cases there for you. There's also a very recent case. There's 2 recent cases that revolve around these are quite grey areas, and this is where in Rudlin, 12-year-old boy, the mother noticed a decline in his health, so he was taken to the doctors, and D told her to ring the doctors over the weekend to see if she could be fitted in. And during this time, this is like trying to ring up to get an appointment, and she actually did get through to a doctor who sort of put her off to the week, and this child then died, and the doctor was charged with gross negligence manslaughter. And the argument was that the doctor should have arranged to see the victim within hours. So the doctor was initially convicted and then appealed, and the sentence was dismissed on appeal. There was a similar case as well, Rose 2017, on optometrics, routine eye test on a boy of 7 and recorded no issues of concern. But there was an abnormality. It was like some abnormality in the eye that hadn't been picked up on, and this child ends up dying. And the optometric was convicted and appealed, and it was dismissed. Well, the appeal was upheld. And it says, as seen in Rose and Rudlin, gross negligence manslaughter is often the offence chosen when professionals, such as members of the medical profession, are alleged to be responsible for death. So this is very difficult for people to prove. So when you see in the exam a question that revolves around doctors, you go straight for gross negligence manslaughter. Probably use these cases I've spoke about, and you need to just provide I would say provide the Adameco test, because obviously there's a lot of grey areas. It's quite nuanced. But if you stick with the Adameco test and Lord Mackay, you shouldn't go wrong. Okay, folks.